Everyone. Welcome to Mom Power. We are going to talk about today how to raise a leader. I'm just astonished in our country today that we're struggling to see leaders emerge in our country. And so I'm so excited to talk about this today. Moms have such a vital role in helping us raise a generation of leaders that we need for our economy, for our nation overall. So, welcome, Stan, to this conversation today. I know your personality is one as a leader, so I'm excited to chat with you about this.
Thank you. Yes, I'm excited about this as well.
Yes. So one of the things that I love to help moms understand is that they actually may be raising a leader that may be just someone that our country needs or someone that our economy needs. Leaders, I want to talk about just that personality type for a minute and kind of explain. I just want to read some of the tendencies because moms sometimes may have this child in their household and they're stubborn, they're unwilling to do anything. They're hardcore, always trying to take the lead. They're the ones who are trying to tell everyone else what to do. So I just want to raise, so those are actually can be really good things if the moms can put it into perspective. So again, the leader dominant type, this is a personality that overall ends up to be someone who's decisive, assertive, very goal oriented. They want to achieve goals and objectives. That's what drives them. Very competitive. And I want to talk about that with you in just a moment. Self-reliant. Hey, I got this. I'm on my own. You don't have to do anything for me. I'm good, right? They're risk takers. They're not afraid to take risks. They like to do that and like to lead others to success. They're again problem solvers and very direct communicators. So sometimes I see some of the bullies on the playground are these leaders. They're the ones that are trying to take charge, make people do what they want to do, maybe not in the correct way. But I'm going to stop right there before I talk about strengths because I just gave a whole bunch of information there. But I want to talk about like, how did that apply to you as you were growing up? Because I know you have this lion dominant personality.
It's looking at the picture at a different view. So, there are these artistic tests that you can view, you can watch, you can look at a photograph, or not even a photograph, but a picture, and it has black and white lines, so there's no color to it. So your imagination has the ability to look at things, and you can see things at the way that your brain has been wired to see them. Now, from a leader's perspective, we might see things a little bit differently than the others around us see them. And it's not right or wrong, it's just different. And it's appreciating the difference that that personality type has the opportunity and also the objective to look at it differently. And when you tell a young leader, someone who is assertive, someone who is dominant, and not dominant in the respect that they're mean. They don't have to be a bully, but they can be a bully because they don't know how to channel what they want. And so a bully will actually take that desire to lead and not getting the affirmation in one environment and now creating their own type of domination to lead in an obnoxious, what can be seen as an obnoxious way. Now, if I can add a comic strip to that, if you remember the movie, oh gosh, what's the name of? They were superheroes. Anyway, it just slipped my mind. I'm seeing the dad in this red outfit. Incredibles. Okay. So remember Sid, who really wanted to be one of the Incredibles?
Yeah.
And he wasn't allowed to be.
Yeah.
And he idolized Mr. Incredible. Well, Mr. Incredible didn't want Sid to be part of what they did because he saw something not healthy in Sid. Well, Sid then became this villain, and this is what happens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if we can harness that and promote individual strengths
Yeah.
in a favorable method, then now we're nurturing and we're not suppressing.
Yeah.
So
I
how's that?
love Yeah, I love the way that you set that up as seeing differently.
Yeah,
So we need to recognize that with all the personality types, whatever your dominant was, you're just seeing things differently. And
right.
so that's a good first recognition. Like a leader's just seeing things as an event of life and it's competitive and I want to take charge, right? So they're seeing things a little bit different. And that's a good thing because, again, I think we need some strong leaders
Yes.
for many places in our society. So, having those natural leaders who can take authority, who can look at a big picture quickly, make a decision and move on it, not be fearful, that allows us to streamline, create better things for our country, for people, for society, for our communities. This is like so important. So, how does a mom, and I think you hit on some of these things, if the mom knows she has this CEO, this entrepreneur, this political leader sitting in their home, and they just have this feeling inside of them, I know this child can be destined for a leadership position in our community, in our society. But meanwhile, I'm playing tug of war every day and it's exhausting me as a mom. What advice do you have? I know your mom must have been exhausted. I know you've talked
Yeah.
about kind of that battle that you went through.
Yeah.
But talk about that just a little bit. Like, how can moms find peace? And again, what you're saying is the encouragement and support, finding the good wave that will push their child forward, versus allowing that to become internally suppressed and them to maybe become something that wasn't as favorable as what they were intended to be.
Yeah, and I think this goes as an overall for every individual,
Yeah.
and especially with moms because moms are given that nurturing uh, responsibility,
Yeah.
and they are typically around their children more than
Yeah.
dads are typically. So when we take the idea and we look at a child and we say, what is making them see this the way that they're seeing it? And when we have that empathy and
Yeah.
now we validate, I mean, as humans, we all want to be validated.
Yeah.
And as our children, like I have two granddaughters and they both have different identities, different personalities,
Yeah.
and they want to be validated in the way that they want to be validated rather than to fit them all in one, lump sum. Well, it's not that way. They're so unique in their identities that it's amazing. And it's nurturing and having the empathy towards that. And that's where that emotional intelligence comes in. It
Right.
is developing that and asking the child, tell me, why is it that you see
Yeah.
the world this way? Why is it that you see this in this perspective? And children, and I would get attention, and it was because of my ADD, okay? But the attention that I got really actually supported my identity. And
Yeah.
sometimes it was bad attention, but I was getting the attention. I wanted to be noticed.
Right.
And this is where our differences come in because we can have a quiet leader and we can have a loud leader.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a leader that makes decisions and understanding and helping that child know that they're not going to be embraced
Yeah.
in all their decision making, They're
Yeah.
not going to be liked for all their decision making, but if they're making the decision based on the truth of who they are and what they believe in,
Yeah.
then let's help them do that. And if it is, as long as it's a positive measure, I'm not for promoting negative measure just because that's the way they believe.
Right.
Um, Beating kids up on the playground is not my idea of a positive adventure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely
You-
not.
Yeah.
Right. And we're going to come back to that in a minute. But I want to talk about one of the best things for dominant leaders moms can do is be direct in their communication. Communication is the key, as you know, because a dominant child can effectively communicate. But also, the mom needs to directly, openly, honestly give that feedback straightforward with clear instructions as well.
Yeah.
So just having that open dialogue is key in a very open, honest way. And I know sometimes this personality can come off as rude or offensive or over controlling, overbearing. So just how does a person communicate well? And then also, how do we train that child to play well? And I know competition is a part of that. Getting them involved is another good recommendation in sports where they're able to channel their competitive nature in a positive way that allows them to build some team camaraderie and understanding of how teaming works as well. But talk about that communication. Like, what did that look like for you?
Well, any team environment, whether it is a sports or whether you're working for a company or you're part of an organization, there's boundaries.
Yeah,
And if you step outside of those boundaries, there's a consequence.
yeah,
And the consequence is actually designed to protect and provide a structure. When we understand that structure is actually the beneficial area for growth,
yeah,
then and when we can teach it that way,
yeah,
then it becomes a game. We gamify it, and there is
yeah,
support in staying within the boundary because now we can lead outside of the box, but still within a boundary of the company or the organization or the family function,
yeah,
or even if it's just a communication style.
yeah,
And it's teaching those healthy boundaries and also representing them is really what a child learns by what they see.
yeah,
And this is why if you send your children to Rome, wherever organization that is, okay, they're going to come back Romans.
yeah,
So
definitely.
if you train a child in the way that he or she should go when he is young or she is young, even when they're older, as they've strayed away, as we all do,
Yeah,
they will come back because they've got this foundation. So as we set this foundation up and we encourage their identities,
yeah,
that's and understanding that the boundaries are there to protect,
yeah.
not to eliminate, not to prevent, but to protect.
Hmm.
And we promote it that way. I really see that as a benefit. Uh,
Yeah,
I don't see any unproductive or unbeneficial structure or growth by not by having a boundary. If you don't have a boundary, you don't care.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just the truth of it.
No,
You know.
it's so true. We just got a new puppy, and so boundaries are huge at our house
Oh
right now.
yeah.
Like training those boundaries, I mean, it is somewhat difficult because you're, especially for me as a mom, because you want to be loving and nurturing. But no, if you don't set those boundaries, they're going to disrespect you and then disrespect other people in the same way.
Right.
So it's so important, such an important point to set those boundaries and be firm, even when you're tired or want to be loving and supportive. You've got to keep those boundaries in place. So huge. And then also teaching them like respectful assertiveness, like how to respect individuals when we're talking to them. how to, and again, if they can learn that early, they'll realize that you can get more out of an individual, more relationship, more just moving forward momentum wise, if you're learning how to communicate assertively but effectively with another individual and understanding all the different personality types. One thing I want to say about this personality, though, is they really do have a hard time handling criticism. Let's see, I'm trying to say it how my dad or my kids have said it. They say, "Oh, you can dish it out, but you can't take it." Something
Right.
like this is that personality that is very hard for this personality type to handle criticism. So, what are some of the early things that we can do to help teach? Like, I'm not a big person on criticism. I've learned to take it over the years, but how do we help our children learn how to receive feedback that's critical and how to learn and grow from that?
Well, that is a tough one because
Yeah.
even as an adult, just being transparent, it is difficult to take that criticism. But I have to ask the question, and when I'm sane, okay, when I'm thinking clearly, I ask the question: what else does this mean?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what Sally's going through. I don't know what, Julie's going through. I don't know what has
Yeah.
brought them to a place where they've said something to me, and it's the way that I receive it. And if I learn this early on, if I
Yeah.
learn this principle, if I would have learned this principle early on, what else could it mean?
Yeah.
Then it may have eliminated some of the some of the taking it personal. Excuse me, taking it personal,
Yeah.
and learning not to take things personally,
Right.
because that's just someone else,
Yeah.
and I don't know all that they've gone through.
Yeah.
So my perception is really what has formed throughout the day. I can wake up in a good mood. I can wake up on the right side of the bed, or I can wake up on the underside of the bed.
Yeah.
And if I start my day by saying today's one of those days, I already know that I need to change my stinking thinking and say, okay, you know what? I got to be on the lookout.
Yeah.
And it's how I start my day is going to make a major difference.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how to process that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think another part of that is just learning. And I'm honestly, I'm still doing this for myself. Is taking the emotion out of the situation. I think dads are better at this, maybe than moms. And maybe there's dads that are, better at it or worse at it than moms. I don't know. It just depends on your personality. But separating the emotion from the actual circumstance.
Mhm.
Um, Talk about that just for a minute, because that's something I'm doing, like trying to take the emotion out of the situation so that you can bypass all of those triggers in your mind that may come or occur as a result of, words that were said.
Well, you mentioned communication earlier,
Yeah.
and I think it's so important to understand what our communication is. The most person that we have the most communication with is ourself, and we're unaware of it
Yeah.
because we're thinking constantly and we're processing constantly, even without our being aware of it. Now, why do I say that? I say because if you were to visually see the words that your mind is thinking
Yeah.
from the very beginning of your day to the end of your day, you would be amazed at
Yeah.
how many negative things we think.
Yes. That's so
Because we're constantly getting a no. And as a leader, as somebody who wants to be assertive, somebody who wants to be recognized,
yeah.
we're looking to validate the yes that we're really looking for. And as a leader, I mean, you can lead a game on the playground just as well as you can lead a corporation, and we're looking to get our yes validated, and sometimes bullying gets our yes validated but in an obnoxious way.
Yeah.
but we get it validated. We can throw authority around, and we can throw our authority around and say, you're going to do it the way that I said to do it, and that's why you're going to do it that way. And a child will always ask, well, why? Because they're asking why, because they've seen something different in our response at another time.
Yeah.
And then if we say, because I told you so, that's the way that we're going to do it,
Yeah.
then that gets logged into their brain.
Yeah.
And now it can change the way that that child interacts with other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So communication, when we learn to communicate with ourselves
Hmm.
and change our self-talk,
Yeah.
and I brought this up several times in several talks. By the time we're 18, if we grow up in a 70% positive home environment, we have been told no 148,000 times.
Wow. Wow.
Now, the yeses are much, much lower.
Yeah. Yep.
And one of the exercises that I do with my clients is I have them go and get 10 no's.
Yeah.
So go get 10 no's. And the reason that you do that is, number one, that you don't take it personal.
Yeah. Right.
And
That's
when you allow the no to just slide off your back, you go,
yeah.
okay, what else could it mean?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the communication is what we're telling ourselves,
Yeah.
and if we belong or if we don't belong.
Yeah, I love that. And just an example of that. So my husband's a contractor, so he gets no's a lot, right? So he had to learn early on to take that no and to let it slide off his back. And
Right,
that was difficult for me. I didn't want to hear no. I was the teacher. I want to hear yes all day long, right?
right.
So when you are starting a business or you're working with clients, I love that exercise because when you hear no or rejection in some manner, you're not good enough, you're not playing well, you're da 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 da, the rejection, allowing that to slide off of you is key in being able to continue to move forward. Just again taking that emotion out of it. I know we refer to it today as emotional intelligence, like to recognize and then to manage your emotions. But again, I used to have this little phase. I'd say, like, oh, I'm going to take this little emotion and I'm just going to set it in a box in the closet so that I'm just going to put it there. Maybe I'll deal with it, maybe I won't, but that removes the emotion out of the circumstance. So just different ways, fine. And like you said, monitor yourself during the day. I started doing that recently because I thought, oh, pretty happy-go-lucky. Like I do have the happy-go-lucky personality, but as I monitor different situations, oh my gosh, I did get angry. Oh my gosh, I did have self thoughts about myself not being good enough, or just recognize those emotions, those things that you're telling yourself. I mean, that's a huge exercise for anyone for the day. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, I would challenge moms, I guess. Oh, the one other thing I want to talk about is this personality type. I believe it really requires a strong need for patience. I had a lot of people over my lifetime say, you have the patience of Job, right? That's because I dealt with a lot of kids in a lot of classrooms, but it does require a lot of patience. Did you tell us a little bit about how did you see patience in your mom? How did that affect you? Like, what
No,
does patience look like for you now?
no. And you know what? One of the things that I learned as a Christian
Yeah,
uh, and I mean in my 30s. So I really came to faith in my 30s,
yeah,
and I was working for a client that was as obnoxious as a square peg trying to fit into a triangle. Okay. Now it is impossible. And I kept praying for patience, and he just kept annoying me more and more and more. So what I discovered is don't pray for patience.
yes, good
Why?
one.
Why you don't pray for patience is the only way you learn it is by going through trials. So let's look at another opportunity for patients and
Yeah.
look at the situation differently. How am I showing up?
Yeah.
How am I bringing myself
Yeah.
so that I'm feeding the environment that I'm in? Because I'm one element of
Yeah.
an environment. And so my mom did not have a lot of patience.
Mhm.
At least this is my perspective. See, I
Right.
don't think she had a lot of patience. She was very firm. And when she said something, all she needed to do was look, and
Right.
that's all it took. And I knew.
Right.
And, when she said my middle name following my first name, I knew that something was not going to be well. But what I learned through that is that I became a person that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I wanted to receive. So I learned, through, hey, they say you can attract more bees with honey than you can with vinegar.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same thing. And it is in our tone, it is in the way that we wake up in the morning, it is in the language that we're saying to ourselves before anybody comes into our space
Yeah.
as to how that patience will be displayed or exemplified. And I was on a construction job site, a commercial site, and the general contractor was observing how I was dealing with my crew,
Yeah.
and they had some ideas, and I allowed them to process, and he's watching. And then when we dispersed, he came over and he said, "You're very good at that." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "The way that you dealt with them,
Yeah.
you allowed their ideas that weren't really good
Yeah.
to be expressed,
That's
and
awesome.
then you guided them gently in a direction that you wanted them to go." And
Yeah.
that is a skill.
Yeah. It is a
And I wasn't aware that I was doing it because it's
yeah.
something that is part of my identity. So when we make that part of identity, now let me tell you, just I'll be very clear. I don't get it right all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't throw golf clubs because I don't golf. Okay. So, but I'm sure, if I did, there were more days than I care to admit that I cleared my desk off and then had to pick up all the papers. Okay. So, um, but here's the thing: we're human,
Yeah.
and when
Right.
we can appreciate our emotions and we can appreciate the ideas, then we can express patience without praying for it, or saying,
Yeah.
I've been so patient with you. Now you found my last nerve. Well, trust me, I thought I found my last nerve years ago, and somebody continues to find a new last nerve. So I've got a lot of nerves inside of me, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, that's right. And also, I just want to encourage moms. I think one thing that I learned along the way is just I know we've talked about this before, but take a 2-minute timeout. Like sometimes just walk in the bathroom and just like shut the door for a minute. Now, I know that's hard with moms, kids, animals, everything, trying to get in there with you, but sometimes moms just need a 2-minute timeout. Just a 2-minute timeout. We all need sometimes just a 2-minute. I'm just going to walk outside here for 2 minutes. I'm going to go to this quiet place. Sometimes I just want to get in the car, drive to the store by myself to have that 2 minute. I just need 2 minutes to decompress and recompose myself. So, allowing yourself that 2-minute decompression, that few minutes to just like, let me get rid of this emotion so I can move forward is super key.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And helping a child, also, you know, take just some short breaths, some deep, short period breath, and just help them to process. And this is something else that I encourage my clients to do is just, I'll be on the phone with somebody that I've never met,
Yeah.
and you can tell that they're having a bad day. And I'll say, it sounds like you've got some real stress in your job. And they'll say, yeah, I deal with this all day long.
Yeah.
And I say, well, in just a couple minutes, if you just place your hand on your chest
Yeah.
and take a deep breath in through your nose, 5 seconds, and then hold it for 5 seconds, and then slowly exhale for
Yeah.
8 seconds,
Yeah.
and do that 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
It's amazing what it does to the cortisol that's in our bodies and allows us to calm down. So if we teach our children to do that,
Yeah.
they can do that without hyperventilating, getting anxious, and just getting back grounded.
Yeah.
That can make a major play on an impact.
Yeah, it can. And one time I heard a lady, she was a good friend of mine. She was a marriage psychologist, and she said, the best thing you can do is take a time out, like call time. Like if you are just like ready to go at it, or you're already going at it, somebody just needs to say time out. And then
Yeah.
everybody takes a little chill pill and takes the time out. And I know it's hard to do that when emotions are rising. Again,
Yeah.
being aware of your emotions. Learn, discipline yourself to call time out, just walk away, diffuse, come back at a later time. It's usually you can work it out at that point in time. But with children, especially, hey, time out. Let's just take a minute here to walk away, and then we'll come back and look at it again a second time.
Yeah. Yeah. We all want to be validated. We
Yeah.
all want our point to be validated. And it is in the appreciation of that validation, that giving that time out to, permission for the timeout,
Yeah.
to come up and say, look, I'm right and you're right.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna let's break for just a moment and
Yeah.
then come back to this.
Yeah.
Don't avoid the topic or avoid the situation, you know, and have healthy consequences.
Yeah.
If somebody storms off and slams the door, there's a healthy consequence of, hey, you know what? That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
What would be a better way to vent your aggression or your point? What is that? A squeezy ball?
Yeah.
Something, and appreciating the personality type. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know one of those recommendations too for boys, somebody told my mom for my brother one time, you need to hang one of those punching bags in your basement.
Yeah.
So I know there's all types of solutions. Again, giving a healthy way to get out the emotion. Again, just realizing that it's emotion and this is a training and a nurturing opportunity. So trying to keep in mind all the things while you're going through that is huge. I hope we provided some value today.
I'm sure.
I thought it was a great conversation. Thank you for helping us understand that a little bit better. Again, just to recap, they're very competitive. So find a competitive place. Criticism is a big deal. So help them understand how to receive the criticism effectively, call a time out, model tons of patience and understanding. I know we can say all these things, but if you can just take one of those things today and try to incorporate it into your home, it will make such a huge difference long term as you're developing that leader that God has placed in your home to raise. And we're appreciative of your mom, Stan, doing that, and of our moms who were always there to help train and nurture us in the way that we should go. So awesome. All right. If you got any value out of this today, please like, please subscribe. I appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care on Mom Power. Moms, be powerful this week.